Raven writers, we're working on using I-ads, the building blocks of narrative, to write so that readers can make a movie in their minds. Last week we were working on dialogue, and this week we're going to be focusing on description. Remember, I-ads are inner thinking, action, dialogue, and description, and they're the building blocks of narrative. Description is essential to filling out important details of the setting and action in the reader's mind. Description helps the reader see, hear, and feel what's happening in the story. The main tool is the use of sensory detail or imagery to get the setting and vivid verbs to capture actions. We'll be expecting you to use those too. In this video, we'll also preview 2 other techniques, elaborating with a list of 3 items and using figurative language. Using sensory detail and imagery simply means including a lot of details in your story that appeal to or relate to the 5 senses, the sense of sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. For example, for the sense of sight, you would include lots of references to the color of objects, the shape, the size, the texture, the speed, all these descriptive words that would help your reader see what's being described. Let's say you're writing about a camping trip you took with your family. You picked loads of wild blueberries one day. The next day, your mom made blueberry pancakes and your little brother pigged out. He's quite the sticky mess. You say, sweet, slow drops of purple juice dripped from the corners of his mouth and flowed in little blueberry rivers down to his chin. Can you picture that? We created this description by adding color and shape. I guess a river, like a drop, and a river to me evoke shapes. And size, it's a little blueberry river. And a little bit of texture in the word flowed, kind of smooth. And a little bit of speed in it, dripped. That's maybe also a little bit of shape or size. But overall, you get a picture of this boy's face. We can also use imagery with sound. A loud crash and a grinding crunch echoed from just around the bend on the trail. Lee stopped dead in his tracks. When ear-splitting cracks and snaps followed, he dropped his pack and sprinted in the opposite direction. I can hear those things and feel his fear. Smells are a little harder because it's hard to describe smells. They can be smoky or sweet or pungent or musty, like Charlie thought Mrs. Wilson's house smelled. Her house smells like a cross between grass when it's just cut and skinny after gym class. Musty. So he's making that smell by comparing other smells that the reader might be familiar with to Mrs. Wilson's house. So, writers try to include lots of details about the sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and touches that are in the story so that the reader can feel like they're experiencing them directly. Another technique is to use vivid verbs. Let's say you're writing about a story about a boy at school, and you could say he walked down the hallway. But you could also describe how he walked by choosing a different verb. You could say he strode down the hallway, confident that no one was looking. Or he slunk down the hallway, hoping no one was looking. Or he skipped down the hallway, not caring if anyone was looking. These give very different ideas, but give you a lot of information about how that character is doing the action. They describe the way it's being done. Let's look at a passage where the author uses both of these techniques. It's from Refugee 87 by L. Fountain, and the main character is in a boat crossing the Mediterranean Sea towards Europe. These are the opening passages of the book. Cold, salty water stings my eyes and soaks my t-shirt. I cling to the clammy wooden edge of the boat as the huge waves swells toward me. The boat tips and I gasp as people slide against me and the air is pressed from my chest. The sky is turning from light to dark gray. White foam tops the waves. The wind pushes relentlessly against my face, and with the next rolling wave, the boat dips so low that buckets of water gush in over the side, soaking me again with freezing water. I feel it creeping above my ankles. No one cries out. Even the baby strapped to the mother beside me is quiet. Okay, I've highlighted all the verbs: stings and swells and slide and gasp and pushes and gush. They're very descriptive verbs. But in addition, she uses lots of sensory detail. Words that show the sight details, like wooden edge and huge, and light colors like light to dark gray and white foam, and rolling and dipping. Then there's also the touch words like cold and clammy. Also, rolling and soaking and freezing and creeping are also words that show the feeling. There's even some taste words like salty, and then some sound words, or the absence of sound words. No one cries out. Even the baby strapped to the mother beside me is quiet. All of this imagery makes you feel like you're there and also creates a mood and kind of a feeling, a foreboding feeling of cold and hardship. All right, Ravens, it's time to write a flash draft. Write the date 10/2 and the word flash draft as a heading in your notebook. You're going to write a new story, or you could revise and expand an earlier entry that you started. Remember, all of you wrote a little bit about Katie going out at Halloween. You could do that one if you wanted to, because Halloween's a great setting for lots of sensory details and imagery and the possibility of using lots of vivid verbs. But you can write about anything you want to, as long as you add a lot of descriptive language. You might want to skip every other line so that there's room to revise. And when you're done, underline or highlight 3 places where you've used one of these techniques: sensory details and imagery, or vivid verbs. If you want to do the extension and the challenge and the extension, there's a separate video that talks about these 2 techniques, list of 3 specific items in figurative language, and you're welcome to use those as well. I'd love to see that. If you're still stuck on a topic, there are 3 possible topics with slides and pictures that follow this, and you can keep watching, or you can set this back to show you any of the techniques that you've seen so far. I look forward to reading your flash drafts. Scuba, arcade, and school bus. I look forward to reading your work.